It is a pleasure. Hi, everyone. Matt, what an incredible presentation. Definitely heavy on the technical side. This is going to be slightly different. I think I'm taking it from a more fun approach, talking specifically today about NFTs. So let me just pull up my screen, make sure everybody can see it. Can you guys see that, Haley?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So today I want to spend some time talking about NFTs, what I've learned about NFTs and why you need them in your portfolio. And hopefully by the time we're done today, inspire you to move into this space if you already haven't moved into this space. And actually, let me just do one more thing here to set this up. Perfect. And then I hope you guys will excuse my voice. If you know anything about Miami, the last month and a half, almost 2 months, has really centered around Miami Tech Month. It used to be Miami Tech Week. So there has been back-to-back events and conferences, particularly in the crypto and NFT space. So I have spent a lot of time talking, a lot of time using my voice. So I've got a little bit of warm tea, and hopefully I can make this through without too much squealing out of my voice. So I'm already starting to see the questions roll in. A lot of this stuff will be explained. I want to make this as interactive as possible, so I'll try my best to look through the chat as we go along. But I'll get started. So to say that I've gone down the rabbit hole of NFTs is an understatement. I've learned a lot in the process. I really got deep into NFTs early last year. And my hope today is to give you an intro to NFTs, share some of the lessons that I've learned, and walk you through the process of adding your first NFT to your portfolio. So let me tell you a little bit about who I am online, and a little bit of my background. So my name is Ralph Quintero. You can find me online, mostly on Twitter at Ralph Quintero. You can find me on LinkedIn, most all of the other social media platforms at the same handle. I'm also known as Doodle 9315. It's kind of we're going with, he's the most famous doodle in Miami. My doodle NFT is actually painted on the side of a building in downtown in the Brickell Financial District. And I'll share in a little bit how that came to be. But a little bit of my background, I spent the bulk of my career in sales and marketing. I was the vice president of worldwide sales and marketing for JBL. Basically, the worldwide leader in audio and in consumer audio and tech. Learned a lot there. I was managing an $8 billion business unit. When I left JBI, I went off and I founded several companies in the marketing and tech space. And I've actually spent the last 3 years as an operating partner for a private equity firm. But what's really interesting is that I went down the rabbit hole of NFTs, like I mentioned, and as of the beginning of this year, I've actually moved full-time into the Web3 space as an advisor to several companies, as an investor, both personally and through a fund, and as a community builder. So I'm the chief GM officer, CGMO of JPEG Morgan, which is a fun kind of group that we created to poke a little fun at JP Morgan. This is just a group of friends that got together to buy a lot of JPEGs and NFTs, and I'll share some information about that in a little bit. I invest through Foam Ventures, which is a small syndicate specifically focusing on Web3 and NFT companies. And I currently serve as the head of community at Crypto League, which is basically a way for people to come together as communities and invest in NFTs and crypto. And community is a big part of the NFT space, and we are going to chat about that as well. So it wouldn't be an NFT presentation without sharing a little bit of my story of how I got into NFTs and a little bit of my first NFT. So my first NFT was a cool cat. And I'll frame the story like this. I was at a family picnic on the 4th of July last year, and having a great time, drinking, eating, partying a little bit. And I hopped on Twitter, and a good friend of mine who's also an investor in the digital asset space came on and had just tweeted to all his friends that we should go out and buy a cool cat. So I DM'd him and I'm like, what's that, Shane? And he's like, shut up, just go buy it. You have a little bit of ETH. You'll thank me later. And at that point, I had no idea what NFTs were. So I heeded his advice. I bought my first NFT. It was this cool cat that you see on the screen. And I proceeded to show it off to my family and friends who were sitting at the picnic. And the reaction was a lot of laughs. People thought I was ridiculous. The most common comment that I got was, you spent how much on a picture of a cat? And, they were like, so what does it do? And I was like, I have no idea. And what's it good for? I have no idea. Are you going to get a physical copy of it? I have no idea. But, the long story short of that is that I bought that cool cat for $212. And I ended up selling it on September 25th for $23,000 for an almost 11,000% return, which just blew my mind. But what really happened after that day, before I even saw the potential for profitability, was I really started to understand the underlying technology of NFTs and really started to see, from a future perspective, what that could mean. So between now and then, I've bought more than 500 NFTs. I've learned a lot about this space. I'm learning every single day. If you come across anybody who says that they're an expert in the NFT space, or even in the crypto space to some degree, run as fast as you can the other way, because like I said, every day I learn something new, and I hope to share a basic primer of what that is with you today. So I think it would be good to start with a little bit of history, and I may be dating myself a little bit here, but I think it's important for context. So if we go back to July of 1994, I was graduating from high school. This was the actual cover of Time magazine that July, The Strange New World of the Internet, battles on the frontiers of cyberspace. And it was like, the question at the time was, is the internet here to stay? I mean, there were newspaper articles like the one in the middle, the internet may be just a passing fad as millions of people give up on it. And America Online really hadn't even started, their mass program of sending out these floppy disks to everybody's homes and inserting them in like mailers and products that you would buy, right? So if you think back then and you kind of fast forward to where we are today, we all know what happened with the internet. We saw its meteoric rise. We saw how it essentially changed the world. And what I think that we're going to see in terms of Web3 is something very similar, but I think that the effects are going to be exponential. And I actually think that they're going to be incredibly exponential, like 100x. Because if you look back at 94, the thing back then was there was no commercial email. So you and I couldn't exchange an email, or we couldn't reach to somebody halfway across the world via email. We didn't have access to the internet and information at our fingertips. Most of us had encyclopedias at home or had to depend on going to the library for information. And the access to the best technology was limited to just a few handful of companies, just the biggest companies on the planet. But you look at what we are seeing today, we have email, we have access to all the information that we could want. We could contact people halfway around the world. We can hire somebody, in another country in a matter of minutes. So with all of that at our fingertips, I think that this presents an opportunity for significant growth. So what is an NFT? So essentially an NFT is a digital asset that you own and control. You can display it, you can rent it, lease it, license it, sell it, etc. It's like the easiest way to describe it, it's almost like a digital trading card. And the thing is that not all NFTs are pictures of cute animals like the cat or apes, which is, the bored apes is something that we've all heard about or seen on late night TV or the news channels. There's much more to NFTs than just that. And I think that to explain NFTs, it's important to understand the differences between fungible and non-fungible tokens. So NFTs stands for non-fungible tokens, right? So a fungible token is interchangeable. So it's a lot like a US dollar bill. So for example, if I lend Haley a $1 bill, I don't care if she actually gives me back that same exact dollar bill or a different $1 bill. But let's say that she has a dollar bill and she's at an Elton John or Madonna concert and they signed that dollar bill. So now that dollar bill moves from being, essentially fungible and not very unique to being non-fungible and very unique. So if I lend that dollar bill to Haley, she better return that same exact Madonna or Elton John signed bill, not a generic $1 bill, not a picture of the bill, or even a dollar bill signed by another celebrity, because that's just going to take away from the value of that bill. So thinking through of crypto, to give an example of a token that's fungible, let's talk about Bitcoin for a second. So the way that I look at Bitcoin is fungible, right? It only matters that you have X amount of Bitcoins, not which exact Bitcoins you have, but with the example that I gave earlier of a cool cat NFT, it's non-fungible because each one of those cats is unique. So if you look at a lot of these NFT projects, each one of these pictures has its own set of traits. So some may be wearing hats, or like the one that you're seeing on the screen right now, this is a Wonder Pal and he's got a little frog sitting on his head. But there's no two Wonder Pals that look just like the one that's sitting on the screen right now. So let's cover both types of these fungible and non-fungible tokens, and then some of their use cases in more detail. And I think that that's going to help to frame the explanations of NFTs a little bit better. So talking about fungible tokens first, fungible tokens are interchangeable, like I just explained, the same way that most currencies are. So often they're also known as payment tokens. So back to Haley, if she has 2 Bitcoins and I have 1, Haley has 2 times more Bitcoin than me. The same way that if she had $2 and I have $1, she has 2 times more dollars than I do. And Haley can actually use her Bitcoin to buy, say, a concert ticket or a pizza. And I'm using pizza as a particular example because there's a very famous example of somebody just last week. It was the anniversary of one of the early Bitcoin adopters who paid 10 Bitcoin for a large pizza. And you fast forward to today from when he had that transaction, that pizza would be worth close to $1 billion. He'd actually be able to buy like a significant portion of the Papa John's pizza franchise from where he ordered the pizza, which I think is comical and speaks to just how early we are in this space. So in addition to the money-like functions, or the payment token functionality, fungible tokens also serve some additional roles. In particular, there's 3 use cases for fungible tokens. 1 is governance, 2 is security, and 3 is utility. So governance tokens are like voting shares in a company, right? So a crypto project's community can use these tokens for voting on key decisions. And then the voting power is proportional to how many tokens you hold. So for example, if we were going to create a project, and let's say we call it the Good Vibes Project, and all of you guys and girls buy into the Good Vibes Project at varying investment levels, you would be issued a Good Vibes token. Let's just call it GV for the sake of this discussion. So you'd be issued GV tokens in proportion to how much you invested. And those tokens would serve as your governance tokens. So if we took a vote and we said, okay, the Good Vibes Project is thinking about buying X asset. Should we buy it or should we not buy it? Based on the amount of tokens that you're holding, you could have that much voting power. So another example is security tokens. And security tokens are like equity shares. So they represent the equity ownership in the project. And then finally, utility tokens. The best way to describe utility tokens, or that I found to describe utility tokens, is like a carnival ticket, right? So you can earn them or you can purchase them, and then you can exchange those tokens for desired goods and services that are offered, among projects or other ecosystems that actually accept those tokens. So that's a good primer on non-fungible tokens. But let's talk a little bit about, I'm sorry, that was fungible tokens, but let's talk a little bit about non-fungible tokens, because they serve similar functions, but they're unique. So even in the digital realm, there's many different kinds of NFTs, right? So some of the types include collectible NFTs, which are, like I described them earlier, blockchain-based sports cards. So like, you could buy, I guess the best way to describe it is if you had a Babe Ruth card or a Mickey Mantle card, that would be significantly more valuable than if you just had a regular baseball player card. Or if we look back to our history collecting, Beanie Babies or Garbage Pail Kids, there was, certain rarities attached to those. So collectibles is one way. There's also art NFTs. And, there's a lot of different art projects. Artists have really embraced the NFT culture. There's digital artists, there's photographers, there's musicians. So you can actually own a piece of their art, whether it's generative art, whether it's music. NFTs have actually brought about the ability for artists to sell their music and the rights to their music directly to the fans. So I'm personally a big fan of music NFTs. So I actually own pieces of tracks from some of my favorite electronic musicians. So every time that they earn revenue from streaming those tracks on Spotify, or if they end up getting licensed as part of a commercial, not only is the artist making money, but I'm actually earning money as well, which is incredible. And that's something that really wasn't accessible to most investors in the past. There's also gaming NFTs. I would imagine that some of you on this presentation today are gamers yourselves. You may have kids that are gamers, and you know that all of these games have incredible in-game economies. And up until the advent of Web3 and NFTs, most of that revenue was tied to the game publishers. So the game publishers were the ones that were really enjoying all of the benefits of being able to sell weapons, upgrades, boosts, level ups. And those assets that you're buying in game weren't portable. And NFTs actually make those assets yours. You can trade them freely. You can profit from them, as so can the game developer, because of the way that the smart contracts around those NFTs are written. Another type of NFT is virtual land. You may have heard of the metaverse, Sandbox, or Decentraland. Those are all virtual lands that you can purchase on the promise that you'll be able to develop on them in the future. So, if you're already into having real estate investments, traditional real estate investments in your portfolio, you may find that you understand the virtual land space because it draws a lot of parallels, and there are a lot of similarities around it. And then finally, the infamous PFPs, like my doodle that I opened with, or the Cool Cat, or the Bored Ape Yacht Club's apes that you see a lot of people on Twitter donning as part of their profile pictures. And, the reality is that most people who hear the word NFTs, the first thing they think of is pictures of apes. Or pictures of monkeys, or some people even think of the Cool Cats, right? But like I've been mentioning, there's a lot more to the underlying technology of NFTs. In my eyes, art is really the gateway drug to the underlying tech behind NFTs. And I really didn't understand the power of the underlying tech until I bought my first NFT. So I would consider myself crypto light, in the sense that I was exposed to Bitcoin and Ethereum a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. And that's been kind of the primary holdings for myself in terms of crypto. But going into crypto, I got into it because I understood that it was an important asset class for me to participate in, but I never really understood what the blockchain meant, how it worked, why it was important, until I bought my first NFT. Because art, like I mentioned, was the gateway drug to me to very easily explain to somebody how it works, how the transfer process works, how the ownership process works, how the contracts get deployed, and how it works. So I think that the deeper you move into this space, the more you're going to learn about the underlying technology. And ultimately, it helps you to become a better crypto investor, as it has for me, because when you understand something at a deeper level, it helps you to make better decisions. So I've mentioned the blockchain a couple of times, and I think it's important to also talk about NFTs in terms of the blockchain. So a non-fungible token represents blockchain recorded ownership of the unique asset. So when I bought my doodle is recorded on the blockchain as me being the owner of that doodle. There is not another doodle that looks like it. It proves my ownership, right, of that particular asset. But it doesn't just apply to digital assets. It actually also applies to physical assets as well, right? So I mentioned real estate earlier. So imagine that, for example, real estate deeds don't have to be transferred or verified by the state because you could verify them as an NFT on the blockchain. So that starts to really open your eyes to the true potential of how you can verify things on the blockchain, right? It changes the game of things like notary services, authenticity services, anything that needs to be proven ownership. It really starts to transform that. So if we go back to the same way that the internet transformed so many industries, I mean, how many travel agencies are still around, right? There still are some, very unique and boutique kind of bespoke travel agencies, but the internet changed all of that. And I think that there's many parts of our economies and just the world that are going to be transformed by the power of NFTs and the power of Web3. Now, NFTs also provide utility in many forms and factors. And to me, I think that's where a lot of the power comes in beyond the art. So what do I mean by utility, right? So utility could come in the form of membership access or exclusive access to events or groups. Utility can come in the form of dividends or income, or future airdrops on a project, or access to concerts, things like that, right? So a great example of this is a concert ticket, right? I mentioned I'm a huge music fan. So what if an artist sold concert tickets directly to their fans, right? They can cut out the middleman, they can keep more profits themselves. And then as a fan, you'd have a way to monetize your ticket directly if you wanted to sell it on a secondary market. So if Haley, going back to using her as an example, bought a ticket to see Elton John when he comes through here in Miami, she may have paid $1,000 for that ticket. She has the right for that ticket. If that ticket was issued as an NFT, it may be a beautiful representation in digital form of a ticket with some motion attached to it, maybe some animation. And that ticket has the value that she paid for it, in this case, $1,000. But let's say that the show sold out in 10 minutes. And as the show gets closer and closer to its date, there's a huge demand for those tickets. So if Haley wanted to sell her ticket right now, she'd have to go to a platform like Ticketmaster or StubHub, go onto their secondary platform. She'd be able to sell a ticket for a lot more than the $1,000 that she paid for it. But she'd have to pay fees to StubHub and Ticketmaster, probably a hefty fee at that, because they're the middleman in this transaction. And she may be competing with a lot of other people doing the same thing. And not have a lot of control over how much that ticket gets sold or to who or for what. Now, if that ticket was an NFT, Haley would have a lot more flexibility with it. She could actually sell it. If the contract was written in a way that it provided Elton John an ability to make money off of secondary sales, he could continue to make money from the increased demand on his tickets. And if she ended up not wanting to sell that ticket and goes to the show, it actually serves as a dual purpose as a digital collectible. So it commemorates the event. So Haley can say, hey, I was at that farewell concert in Miami for Elton John. And it could be a great reminder for her in her own wallet as a collectible of that concert, as opposed to it being in a drawer somewhere or framed on a wall. Like I have stuff framed behind me, but that ticket may become a collectible in the future that if somebody is a huge Elton John fan and wants to collect that ticket, they can. Another great example that I heard recently, actually earlier this week, was hotels are thinking about issuing their reservations as NFTs for the same reason. So you may book a hotel room and it may be a non-refundable room. The hotel chain may want to recognize that revenue right away. But if you can't go on your trip or you decide that you want to sell that ticket, now you have an incentive, if it's issued as an NFT, for you to be able to do that, make some money on the secondary while the hotel chain can also enjoy that same benefit. right? And those are just two examples, right? Another example recently here as well is like access utility. So a couple of weeks ago, we had the F1 race here in Miami. And what was very cool about that event, and I was at the event, and there were holders of certain NFTs that enjoyed exclusive access to areas and parties that were only open to those NFT holders. So, for example, if you were, a Cameo Pass holder, or if you were a Bored Ape Yacht Club holder, you could access parties where certain DJs were playing, like Steve Aoki or Tiesto, and it's amazing the level of access that you have by owning those projects. And the more utility that those NFTs offer, the more valuable that they become in the marketplace. Ultimately, the more you get involved in this space, the more you're going to go down the rabbit hole, like I did, and you'll start to appreciate just how big of an opportunity and game-changing technology this is. So that's kind of a primer on NFTs. And I was going to pause here. For questions, but I think what I'll do is I'm going to go through and talk about buying your first NFT, how you can get started in just a few steps. Because I do think that it's the most impactful way that you can learn about NFTs and the underlying technology is to either just buy one or create one. So here are the 5 easy steps that I recommend in terms of buying your first NFT. So the first thing you want to do is buy some Ethereum, right? Ethereum is the most common cryptocurrency used for buying NFTs. There are NFTs that you can buy using Bitcoin, or you could buy using Solana or some of the other tokens out there. But by far today, the most common use case for buying NFTs and the most popular is Ethereum. So you want to go and buy some Ethereum via TradeStation Crypto or your favorite crypto exchange. And then what you need to do is you want to go and set up a MetaMask wallet. So you need a digital wallet that's going to actually hold both your crypto and your NFTs. And there's a handful of options in terms of crypto and NFT wallets, but I find that MetaMask at this point is the most widely used wallet there is. And you can actually go set that up at metamask.io. It's a very simple setup process. And like I mentioned, your wallet actually becomes your online identity. So in Web3, you verify your identity with your wallet, not your email address. So think of all the websites that you visit that require you to log in, and they either ask for your email address and password, or they may ask for you to connect via Google Connect or Facebook or Twitter. In the Web3 space, what you're using to verify your identity is your actual crypto wallet. In this case, your MetaMask wallet. So once you're setting it up, and this is kind of an important point, when you're setting up your MetaMask wallet, you're going to be given a seed phrase. And a seed phrase is a list of words. Usually it's 12 to 24 words that basically is like your master password for your wallet. And you should write this phrase down and keep it somewhere very, very safe. Like literally keep it in a safe. Because if you get locked out of your wallet and you don't remember your password, you're going to need your seed phrase. Now, if you lose your seed phrase, you actually lose your account and your assets forever. That's why it's very, very important. I can't stress this enough. It's very, very important that you keep that in a safe place. And you do not provide that seed phrase to anyone, no one. Probably not even your loved ones. I mean, as part of your estate planning services, you may want to have a way to transfer that over. But having your seed phrase is essentially like having your banking password. So you want to make sure that you keep it in a safe place, and no one online or no one in the Web3 space is ever going to ask you for it. And in this space right now, because we're so early, there's still a lot of scams going around. So if you remember one thing from this presentation, it's that please do not provide your seed phrase for your crypto wallet to anyone. So the next step is to actually set up an OpenSea account. So OpenSea is the main marketplace for NFTs. So think about it as if it was Amazon or eBay for NFTs. It's kind of like a centralized marketplace where you can go to find the first NFT that you're going to buy. So there are others. There's other platforms like LooksRare and Rareable, which you'll be able to use with your MetaMask wallet as well, or whatever other wallet you set up. But I find that OpenSea is the biggest marketplace. It provides a certain level of security and legitimacy. And especially when you're getting started as you're learning the process, it's a relatively safe place to go and learn the process. So once you've bought your ETH, you've set up your wallet, you've connected your MetaMask wallet to OpenSea to establish your account, you're ready to buy your first NFT. So DYOR actually stands for do your own research. This is very, very important in this space. So when you get to OpenSea, you're gonna be faced with a great interface similar to like if you were shopping, like I said, on Amazon or eBay, and you're gonna see many projects listed. You're gonna be able to see rankings, so you can see what the top projects are, the most popular ones. You're gonna see all different kinds of art projects, all different kinds of NFTs with different utilities. What I encourage you to do is take your time. There's no rush to do any of this stuff. Don't get caught up in the FOMO or fear of missing out and the hype. Really buy into a project that speaks to you, right? Something that you wouldn't mind holding long-term, right? The whole idea here is to learn how this all works, right? What I'm trying to encourage you here is to buy your first NFT and figure out how it all works. Now, you're going to see that there's all kinds of price ranges for projects too, right? So invest only what you're willing to lose, because the reality of it is, because we're so early, a lot of these projects are going to end up going to zero. You're better off, just like stocks and just like crypto. There are blue chip type projects. Some of these are more expensive to get into, but if you have the ability to allocate enough resources and liquidity to those types of projects, you'll find that projects like that are valuable in the long term, and they continue to appreciate in value, but it is still very volatile, right? We're still seeing a lot of volatility in this market, kind of like we've been seeing across all markets for the last couple of weeks, right? The NFT market really hasn't been isolated from it. It's been affected by it as well. So, take your time, find something that speaks to you, buy your first NFT, and then you're really ready to get involved. And I think that's where the true power of NFTs come in, right? And this is quite possibly the single most important thing that you can do in this space, because you're going to learn a lot. You're going to make great friends along the way. And it's going to be a great way to learn even more about the crypto space. So every single one of these NFT projects, almost without exception, have a pretty significant Twitter presence and a Discord presence. And you'll find links to both of those platforms on the OpenSea page for every single one of the projects. And those are kind of the de facto social platforms around NFT projects. So you want to go and you want to, if you haven't set up a Twitter account, I had been off of Twitter for a very long time because it didn't speak to me. I really didn't align with it until I got back into NFTs. And I find it like probably the most important tool that I have to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on and learn a ton every single day. And with Discord, the same thing. Discord is kind of where projects, keep you informed of what's going on in terms of the utility, what's coming up for the projects. You can ask questions of the developers and the mods. And other people. And like I said, what I find from most of these communities in the NFT space is that everybody kind of lifts each other up. So I encourage you to join those communities. And, from my perspective, some of the very best friends that I've met in my entire life, I've met in the last 8 to 12 months. And it's been a result of joining these communities. And I've immersed myself into visiting these conferences in real life and getting to meet some of these people who I've only met online at these conferences. And it's been amazing. And you're going to learn a ton, right? You're going to learn things like GM stands for good morning, and WAGME stands for we're all going to make it. This space kind of has its own vocabulary and it's fun. And even in the worst of times, I think that I've seen a tremendous amount of optimism and encouragement in this space, and rightfully so, right? Because if you look at where we were in 94 and where we're heading to today, I think that the possibilities are really endless in terms of NFTs. So with that, I think I'll open it up to questions, and hopefully that gave you guys a good primer on NFTs, and I hope you'll decide to join in on the fun. Buy your NFT. I'm always happy to help and share anything I can. The best place to find me is on Twitter. My handle is at Ralph Quintero. So RalphQuintero. And share your NFTs with me. I'd love to see, if as a result of this presentation, you bought something and, sharing on the fun. So with that, thanks so much. And I'm going to open it up to any questions. Haley, I don't know if you're still there. Let me open up the chat.
Hi, Ralph. Yes, I actually have a question for you, if that's okay.
Sure.
I've heard a lot about how NFTs really play an important role in the metaverse and how they're structured. Do you have any insight on that?
Absolutely. So in addition to giving you kind of property ownership right within the metaverse, can you hear me okay? Okay. In addition to, digital property rights that, provide ownership of that space for you in the metaverse, they also can transfer your kind of profile and your look into the metaverse. So you can actually mint your kind of physical look. So like my doodle is up on the screen right now. If I wanted to have that doodle be a representation of myself in the metaverse, I can use him and I can transport him into the metaverse and have it be a digital representation of myself.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. We've started kind of looking at VR as well and just and the metaverse and how that space operates. I think it's a really exciting thing to be coming up.
I agree. I think it's gonna be very unique in the way that like we hold meetings or even these kinds of sessions, right? One of the most incredible experiences that I've had so far in the metaverse was attending my very first metaverse concert. And I wasn't exactly sure what that was going to be like. I didn't have very high expectations, to be honest with you, but it ended up being one of the funnest concert events I've ever been to. And I didn't do it in VR or AR. I actually did it just sitting in front of my computer. And like thinking back at it, if I would have done it as a VR experience, it would have been even better. But it was amazing. It was on Halloween, and it was Steve Aoki in Decentraland. And I'm a big EDM fan. I used to be a DJ myself. So having Steve Aoki kind of performing right in front of you and knowing that you're surrounded by all these people that have one thing in common, right? We all held the NFT that got us into that space. We were having conversations in real time while we were listening to Steve Aoki spin. And it was just incredible, right? Like there were no boundaries. So in a real life concert, I actually had to we go to a concert and unless we have like huge budgets, we're sitting up in the nosebleed seats. But in the metaverse, you could be wherever you want to be. So I was like front and center watching Steve Aoki perform, and I felt like I was right there. So it really is incredible.
Yeah, that's we are talking about the NBA games where you can sit courtside through an NFT and all of that kind of. It's a very interesting concept, and how those two things tie together so closely has been really fun to kind of watch unfold.
Yeah, it really has been an amazing journey so far, and it's changing every day, right? Like every day, there's new experiences coming up in terms of NFTs and the utility around them that just open my eyes to new and incredible things, like the hotel reservation example that I use. Right, I hadn't really thought about that as a potential example, but I could see where it's valuable. Right, last month here in Miami, there were conferences left and right, so it was actually very difficult to come by a hotel room. So, if you would have had an NFT of that reservation, or as an investor, if you said, hey, I'm going to go buy a block of these reservations and then, speculatively sell them as the conference gets near, it's an angle. I don't know that I would personally go down that path, but it's definitely an angle.
Absolutely. I do see a question here in the chat. It says, is there one location only where you can shop for any NFTs, such as a large NFT store online?
There's definitely more than one location. I used OpenSea as an example because it is the single largest NFT marketplace. But there's places like LooksRare, Rareable, Nifty Gateway. There's probably a handful of them if you just do a little bit of a Google search for them. But for anybody really starting out, I encourage them to check out OpenSea because it is helpful in bringing together large amounts of collections under one roof.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. I know there might be a couple other questions in the chat, but if you want to send those questions to us, we can pass them along to Ralph and get you some answers for those questions. Ralph, I want to thank you so much for being here today. I hope you get a chance to take it easy and rest your voice a bit, and we hope that you recover there. But thank you so much for your time. We really enjoyed talking to you.
I appreciate it, Haley. Same here. Thank you to everyone. Like I said, you can reach out to me via Twitter. You can send the questions in to TradeStation. I'm always happy to help. And you know, so many people help me along my journey into getting into NFTs. I want to pay that forward and help as many people as I can as well. So thank you to TradeStation for including me in this summit. And I hope to see you guys again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ralph.